Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Black, Female and 50, the Power Trifecta, sponsored by This Woman Can. My name is Janice Sutherland, career strategist for mid-career Black women. And if it's your first time joining our program, I just want to say to you that our program is here to help you, the Black woman over 50, explore some of the challenges we experience as we navigate this stage of our lives and career. This month, we're talking about prioritizing our mental well-being for a marvelous midlife. And let me be honest, let me share with you, whilst I was researching this month's topic, I realized just how many potentially traumatizing situations Black women over 50 or over our lifetime could have experienced. If you're like me and you grew up in a white neighborhood, we were the first Black family in our street. Chances are you would have, and this is in the 70s, should I say, chances are you would have experienced racial abuse as a child, being singled out for being different. I certainly remember the attempts to inject some multiculturalism at school via class performances, being made to sing Yellow Bird way up in a banana tree, or hearing Harry Belafonte sing Deo. And let's not forget that my hair was also a curiosity. Being a teenager and hearing the chants, there ain't no black in the Union Jack, being told to go back to where you come from, being attacked by skinheads at parties. Then, as an adult, navigating the unspoken career challenges, overcoming microaggressions, being sidelined for roles, being made to not feel good enough no matter how hard you work, toxic bosses, climbing rungless ladders, dodging glass cliffs and having to break through glass ceilings, code switching. And then let's not forget the strong Black woman trope. Black women, we as Black women have been taught, should I say, to internalize this persona that we're just expected to toughen up and keep on pushing. We wear multiple hats. We have multiple responsibilities. We can feel obligated to present an image of strength, suppress emotions, not allow ourselves to feel vulnerable. And we have a drive to succeed with limited resources, which many of us have done, and constantly feeling an obligation to help others. Menopause, I'm going on here. This is how many things I thought about when I went through this. Menopause, rarely spoken about, but the toll it can have on some women, the depth of emotional fluctuations that we're expected to keep our composure at all times. I'm not going to dwell on the other areas of life that can be stressors. I'm talking relationships, family, children, elderly parents. And we can't forget what's been happening more recently. Navigating the racial inequities witnessed during COVID, the drivers and the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. And can I be honest here? The weariness of seeing history repeating itself in my lifetime. Feel like you have to shoulder the fate of race because your white colleagues became woke, or they're trying their damnedest to prove that they're not the same as every other white person out there. You know what? Life is exhausting. And I never really gave much thought to my mental well-being. It was not something that we talked about, definitely as I was growing up. So with it being Mental Awareness Month, I thought it fitting to discuss the subject of protecting our mental well-being in our 50s and beyond. So let me introduce my guest and stop talking a little bit. My guest this week is Gillian Wells. Gillian is a registered social worker with a master's degree in social work and an undergraduate degree in psychology. She's located in Ontario, Canada, and has over 20 years of experience in the areas of domestic violence, sexual abuse, refugees and trauma, and most recently with individuals from racialized communities. Gillian has extensive experience in the field of mental health and wellness, not only as a private practitioner, but as a mental health consultant and university lecturer. Most recently, Gillian was employed as the first ever counsellor for Black student support at the University of Waterloo. And today, Gillian has returned back to her first love of private practice as a counsellor, working with individuals, couples, and families as a corporate mental health consultant. So, Gillian, wow, welcome to this edition
Great to
of
be here.
Black Female 50.
Thank
Thank you for joining us. Now, I went through a lot of traumatizing, I didn't realize were traumatizing, should I say, potentially traumatizing scenarios. So, before we kick off, can you just explain to our audience what do we mean by our mental health, our mental well-being?
Well, it's a great segue in because I really like the word mental health and well-being. Sometimes what you tend to hear is things like mental illness. And when people hear mental illness, they exclude themselves. Like, I'm not ill. There's nothing, I'm okay. I don't have a diagnosis. And when we think of mental well-being, I think it's this much more accessible language. So it really allows people to stop and go, okay, I know physical well-being. I know what that entails, exercise, diet, and things like that. So really it's about, let's start to think about our emotional and psychological and mental states as being in a state of equilibrium or well-being and health.
Right. Thank you for that. Yeah, that makes sense. So, and I suppose the burning question for me really is, why is prioritizing our mental health so important at this stage of our lives? What have you seen your practice with your clients?
Well, I think, first of all, I have to say in your intro and when you shared your own experiences, I think that's why, right? Because by the time, if you have the privilege of making it basically to this, this wonderful age, you've seen a lot. And you've seen a lot of things get repeated, right? So like you said, here too in Canada, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's a mental health crisis, okay? We know what's happened over the last few years, that what has been evidenced, all that was revealed. So you've got stress. People are coming to realizations. There's lots of introspection going on. So just in terms of my own private practice, what have I seen is the compounding effect of stress. So it's not like, oh, this stressor, I got a brief relief before the next one. I think we were just hit bam, 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 bam. So it is this compounding, which has really caused people to take stock of their lives, specifically Black women. I've been doing this for over 20 years. And I will say, I have not seen the amount of Black women coming to counseling since George Floyd's murder. I think that's so indicative of the awareness that has been awoke, that has actually happened. So we're taking stock of our lives. We've been taking care of our families. They're re-examining their role in the workforce. Why am I here doing this work? To what end? Am I being valued? What happens afterwards? Then you have all the wonderful physical changes that happens, which is your perimenopausal stage, your menopausal state. Let's throw in some children who are trying to leave the nest. Maybe they go and they come back. Like birds who go and come back, right? And then they sort of settle a little bit and then come back with other little baby birds and back and forth, right? And then marriages, relationships ending or shifting. Then also what you talked about just resonated so well in terms of past trauma, hurts and pain revisiting themselves, and that intergenerational trauma and even family dynamics. So those are some of the themes that I'm seeing in my office and through my virtual appointments with my clients.
Fabulous. You've just got a little playback, not playback, a little knocking noise, I think, in your microphone. Doesn't have anything close to your microphone.
Okay.
But I can hear that. I can hear that. So and I touched on, I did touch on this. So what part do you think, what part do you think, Gillian, that the strong Black woman trope has played in women navigating their mental health?
Well, I love that. I that is a great question. First of all, I think it's a notion. It's a concept. And then I'm like, who gave that to us? Did we ask for it? Was it just was that given to us, right? When I sort of contemplated on that a little bit, I'm thinking it feels like a bit of a mythical characterization that has actually the potential to hold us hostage to an unrealistic ideal, right? So anytime I talk to my clients and we're looking at what a strong Black woman is, what I say, let's take a look at the word strong and let's create our own definition of what strong is, right? And I would definitely say that we're strong, given what you said in, in your introduction, given what we have faced ongoing daily growing up in our childhood, at school, encounters with society, encounters with work. There's no question that we're strong. But if I really want to expand that definition a little bit more, I would also include strength. Being a strong Black woman also means being vulnerable, being tired. I think I heard you use the word exhausted, and having
exhausted,
right? And and also having the ability to recognize when we need help and to actually ask for it. So I think when I think of strong Black woman, I think of resiliency, the ability to bounce back from, right? So it has all these multidimensional components. So it's not just that superhero cape. It's much more than that.
Yeah. Let me just say to the audience, and the listening audience, viewing audience, if you have any questions for myself or Gillian, feel free to put them in the comments. We'll be answering them as we go through. This is a two-way thing here, or three-way. We learn more from the questions you guys are asking us. Totally. So please help to do that. Now, the strong Black woman thing, I just want to tap on that a little bit more, because where I see this playing out a lot, and I'm probably guilty of it myself, is that I've probably been in, and I hear this from my clients I work with, where we've been in toxic, I'm going to use the word toxic, I mean, in work situations where we've probably put up with a lot more the microaggressions, the how people were spoken to, or how we're viewed, the biases, and we suck it up. I think I put in my post, suck it up, buttercup, because maybe we're the first to be here. I know in my experience, I was a lot of firsts. The first Black woman too, the first this to do that. So we feel like we have to represent, maybe because the people coming behind us may be judged based on how we react to what's happening. So how do we kind of navigate that, do you think? How do we kind of, I don't want to say keep sane, but how do we not make it burn us out? Because that's what I see burnout happening as well.
Yeah. I think there's a bit of a delicate balance. So anytime I see a woman going through something, like, okay, how come? So it could be financial reasons. She may be the only person earning money in her situation. She may have limited experiences or education and does not have that privilege or ability to just move on to something else. So even that whole notion, and I know sometimes people are like, well, I'm going to go in there and confront. Well, this is not a story. This is not the movies. It's not TV. Confronting also has some repercussions. So there's always this beautiful, delicate balance that we have to achieve. So I think there's this picking and choosing, using voice, articulating. There are some times when you're like, okay, I'm just going to let this one slide. And then there are other times when you're like, no, I need to actually now have a conversation, which is also about that comment that was actually said to me in the workplace, for example. And so then Black women learn when and how to use their voices effectively. The issue with kind of this suck it up and whatnot, it can be too overarching. And then we tolerate everything. I think there is this really nice balance that actually has to be achieved. And, why am I tolerating this? What is actually going on? And sometimes when people tolerate things, it's because they don't know how to defend themselves. They don't have that skill.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't even think sometimes we realize we're tolerating. One of the questions I often ask is, what are you tolerating right now? And when people look at that question, they sit down and go, wow, well, I'm dealing with this, I'm tolerating that, I'm tolerating, and they don't even realize that they're just going through life, kind of navigating or circumnavigating these tolerances, and not even acknowledging, that's what's happening. And the other thing you picked up on about, having the conversation, what came into my mind just then was, then if we do have the conversation, can we then class as the angry Black woman?
So there's two things happening there. How they're going to classify us, we have no control over. Have no control how you choose to classify me, my friend. What I do have control over is how I'm going to articulate the message, right? And how I choose to articulate how I choose to confront, how I choose to identify the microaggressions and what I plan on doing about that, whether it be a conversation directly with the person, supervisor, HR, union, whatever the case may be, that we have in control. How we are perceived is not is not our responsibility.
Yeah, true. I like that. Really, I like that answer. I like that answer.
Because you're right, we're constantly not making moves or making moves for fear of how we will be perceived. Guess what? You show up and you're going to be perceived anyhow. You're going to already be bought.
It's true. Yeah, I really like that. So Gillian, do you think there's a connection between how women approach life and career transitions, that's the space I like to work in, and their mental well-being?
Yeah. Career and life transitions, they're muddled up together, right? And we think about going into, I don't know, like a meeting where you have to present and you're wearing, whatever, and you get a hot flash, for example. They're quite intertwined, right? Like what I am going through physically and what I'm going through in terms of my career and what I think about myself and how people perceive me and whether I know this content and I'm exhausted. There are multiple things coming at us all the time in which we're navigating, and sometimes in milliseconds, and we don't even recognize it. So they are intricately entwined. And so we're oftentimes, courage is required, right? Because we tend to just push through when it can be really, really, really hard. And I think this is at the stage where I like to say, we need to have more compassion and care for ourselves at this time during that time of our lives.
Yeah, we're not good at that. We're not good at that. I'm thinking from experience. It's not what I was taught or how I was raised. It was literally just plow, get on with it, plow through and stuff. And the compassion wasn't a word I'd see being used often.
Right? Exactly. And I really think there's a lot more words we need to introduce into our vocabulary.
Yeah. Thank you for that. But at this stage in our lives, in our careers, let me say, why wouldn't women be running to make positive changes in their lives, such as leaving? We talked about toxic situations and stuff like that. Because from what I can see, there's so much opportunity out there. And the reason I call this the Power Trifecta, is that we're Black, so we're always brilliant anyway. We're female. We always know females do the best things. And 50, we have that experience.
Yes.
We have that experience that helps us, that employers are asking for. So why do we feel so reticent to make that positive change, and stick with maybe a career that's damaging our mental well-being?
I like what you said. So I'm going to add to that wonderful trifecta that you have created, right? And sort of patented, as it were, and say that, let's add to that the Great Resignation, the shortage of talent. I was actually reading an article, and I think it was saying that even new hires are leaving. And as soon as they get hired, if the workplace is not what they thought, that new job, they're pivoting out. So it is a great opportunity. Everything is just, from a contextual point of view, really in our favor. So why aren't we doing it? And what I would say, it's about the courage. It's about the doubts and the fears that haunt us, right? Change is hard, because it requires us to do something different. We all want change, but actually few people can truly achieve it. So staying where we are in our careers, while uncomfortable, is familiar. So what ends up happening, sometimes we choose the uncomfortable familiar, which is more comfortable than the unknown.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think, I was going to say, I think that's why I always tell people to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, because I think my mom always used to say to me, nothing hard ever came easy.
Yeah.
So I think we definitely have to put ourselves out there. So what are some of the things that, sorry, carry on.
Just,
off the top of my head.
That's right. This is great conversation. I always say, if you're interrupting, you're in great synergy. Where are the role models? We're the women doing it before us, who we could see, right? Representation is so important, which is why I love the platform that you have, because you bring, you yourself, your topics, the guest speakers, the panel discussions. I've attended your events, and I'm like, I'm seeing women who look like me making these shifts, who are courageous. And I think that's really, really important as well too.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we talked about, and I didn't put it as my questions when I was looking at this, when we were doing this, we were doing the pre-chat.
Yeah.
One of the things you touched on, and it's been sticking with me, you touched on, was the privilege that we as Black women in our 50s, in this stage of life, now have that our parents didn't, our mothers, should I say, and grandmothers didn't have. Yeah. So can you expand on, because I thought it was a very, I'm used to hearing about white privilege and stuff like that. So when I heard the word privilege, it was like, ooh, privilege. So would you like to just kind of expand on that for us, Gillian?
It's like you were reading my notes. Great minds do think alike, because that was my third point. My third point was exactly that. It's moving into a space of privilege. There's a lot of languaging going on right now. And I think there's much more familiarity around oppressed and not having this and not having that. And so we forget to wrap our heads around the things that we do have. So a Black woman over 50, what we have is we've got all this wonderful experience and knowledge. We've got this really unique place, but it's literally like a real estate place. It's psychologically, it's like a real estate place. It's a place over there. Can I actually occupy that? Do you mean I actually have choice that I can exercise? I don't have to do this job. I can go into a second career. Or if you're even privileged, sometimes there's some careers where you don't retire on age, but based on years of service. So if you entered this career at 20, you can be done by 50 and retire with all sorts of wonderful, really comfortable lifestyle. That's also a privilege as well too. And when you have privilege, what clients will tell me is like, what do I do? What do I do? Because I haven't seen it before. Even my own mom, I said, what are you gonna do when you retire? She's like, I don't know. So I'm just gonna keep on working. And that becomes the alternative. I'm just going to keep on working because you don't have a vision for retirement. So you just keep on going. Now you can keep on going because that's what you want to do, but that's also because it's part of your vision. You knew this is what you want to do. The place of privilege is new for many of us, new for myself, wrapping my head around that, getting to be able to occupy this wonderful piece of real estate.
And I'm glad you talked about touching on that, because something that flashed into my mind is my mom had me very young, so there's only 17 years between us. So I can see we're literally born. We're actually technically born the same generation. Would you believe it? But never mind. That's why we're born. So, but one of the things I noticed with her is when she did retire, is how different she became, because I don't think she had a plan post-retirement, and I've watched this woman. I'm thinking that's not the woman, the strong woman, the vibrant, and I think it's because she didn't really have a plan. So for me, I think it's really important. I know we're singing off the same hymn sheet here. It's really important that we take this time now in our 50s, even if we haven't retired, or even in our 40s, if you said like you have the long service people who are fortunate enough to kind of retire on a decent pension but still able to work, that we actually start formulating our plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think what we've done it. I think we're doing probably a better job at formulating our financial plan. I think if you ask the average woman, she'll say, I'm tucking away X amount so that, and so I think we've wrapped our head around that financial piece, but we haven't wrapped our head around the psychological, emotional piece of what role do I play in society now? What am I supposed to do? Because we really are human doers rather than human beers. This kind of concept of where do I fit? What am I supposed to be doing? Because that's how we would define ourselves. You go into a party, what do you do? Right? So without that definition, without that vision, I think it's easy to get lost.
And I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. So why aren't women? And I'm gonna, to broad brush here. Why aren't women making mental health something that they need to take care of? Why isn't that a priority? Because this is about prioritizing your mental well-being. So why aren't they doing that?
Because we make everybody else a priority. Like that, to me, that is just kind of the crux of it. We make everybody else and anybody else and anything else a priority, right? And again, another notion, right? That if I put myself first, I'm selfish. This is about languaging, how we language things. So, right? It's like, got to put that, I don't know how many times, like, oh, I don't know, the last piece of chicken at the table. Oh, no, you have it. No, 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 go ahead. I'm not hungry. Your belly's grumbling. Yeah, no, 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 have it. That's all right.
Yeah, I'm not going to say who can sometimes be guilty of that. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that at all. I'm not going to say that at all.
And
so that,
So some of it is just socialization where we're taught to do that. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That's fine. So I was going to say, and you touched on a myth there. You touched on one of the myths there.
Yeah.
So what are some of the myths that we have to debunk in order to make sure that our well-being is a priority?
Okay, so this is where I get to kind of share secrets from the therapy room, or like things like that.
No, I'm all ears. I'm all ears.
I hear this a lot. Believe it or not, people will make an appointment to see me or whatever, and they'll say, I don't believe in mental health.
Yeah.
And I love that one because I usually lean in and go, mental health is not Santa Claus. It's not something you believe in or not. It is. It exists. Like, right? And so it's this idea we all have mental health. Whether that health is optimal or not is the question, but we all have mental health. So oftentimes when people say to me, I don't believe in mental health, what they're really saying is, I don't understand therapy. I haven't found a good therapist. What is this all about? But I hear that. So that's one of the things. And culturally, I hear that a lot as well too. My family doesn't believe in mental health. Yeah. We don't believe in mental health. So that is a big myth that is also a bit of a cultural barrier as to accessing really good treatment and care. So there's that piece of it. Even if it means going to a doctor and having the conversation, well, I don't believe in that. The person can be actually hurting and still say they don't believe in it. And I always give people the analogy, like if you fell down the stairs and hurt yourself, you would go get immediate care. And it's the same thing as being able to identify you are in pain and you need to get appropriate treatment and care.
Right.
I think another myth, I'm going to throw it under myths because I just feel it's appropriate. If you just have positive thoughts, everything will be okay. Just change your mindset. And just change your mindset. No, it's just, how many people have just tried to change their mindset when in truth and in fact, it's actually not your mindset. It's the people around you. It's a toxic family situation. It's a relationship. It's a harmful environment. You could have biological predisposition to a mental health condition. So sometimes these just do this, and because sometimes it goes deeper. It's like a weed. Because you always say that you garden. You can pull out something pretty successful, but it just comes right back, and it comes right back until you get that tool, that instrument, and dig deep, and you're like, wow, these roots were deeper than I thought. And so sometimes this idea of just thinking positive thoughts is not sufficient. Another myth is there's something wrong with me. Again, words are I'm very particular around words. Wrong is such a negative, judgmental statement. If you're not feeling well, if you have a mental health condition, if your well-being is off, there's nothing wrong with you. You are going through life. You're having problems, issues, stressors that you just don't have the solution to at this time. The final one, which I sort of tucked in, and I hear this a lot, and I think I heard it this week from a client, was, if I start crying, I won't be able to stop. Now, I have clients cry all the time, and none of them are still crying to this day. None of them have called me up and said a week later, I am still crying, right? But there's this fear that if I go into this thing that I have kept tucked away in the vault, this deep, hurtful, painful thing, I'm just gonna be a puddle on the floor and I'll never recover. So this idea that and they actually say that if I'm afraid if I start crying, I won't stop. And I've always reassured them, by the time we're done, you're gonna stop crying. Don't worry about it. It just feels like it.
Yeah. No, I can again, and sometimes I think sometimes, and again, I'm speaking from experience here, you've probably held something in so much that there's a fear of actually letting it out. And when it, and it's like, if I do, I mean, I've probably ugly cried in a few places I shouldn't have ugly cried. So.
Ugly cries are good.
But I felt better afterwards. I'm not gonna lie. Let me just take a few comments from the audience, because they've been rolling in, which is great, because I can't see how many people are online here. So it's good. You make me feel better seeing those comments coming in. So we had one comment that just said, absolute to Gillian. While we may understand what we are dealing with internally, externally we may be in a situation where employers do not understand or care to understand what we are experiencing, especially when we have a male boss. This is specific to the office scenario spoken to earlier. And then I have an actual question, part of the question. This was here. Trying to show it. There we go. Re-toxic environments. I think it is important to be able to express issues. However, I also think it is key to have someone safe to speak within your organization. Who does one go to express themselves? That's a great question.
Yeah. Both of those, even the first one was a comment, the second one was a question. Thank you both for those.
Yeah.
Is what they're both getting at is safe environments, right? And as Black women, we've discovered that, certain places are just not safe for us, right? So where am I going to be vulnerable? This is what I always tell my clients. I actually tell them, especially in this virtual world, a little bit different if you're pivoting back in the office or you're there already. I say, keep a journal. Keep a journal next to you and write down the experience. Write down when someone dismissed you in that meeting again, or that person took your idea, or how they spoke to you. Here's why it's so important to write it. You have all these things that happen to you time and time and time again, and it's very easy to internalize it and think there's something wrong. And then you just get angry and frustrated. The beauty about writing it out is it externalizes it. And then you're able to look at it objectively and like, you know what I noticed? That when we're in meetings with our other boss, Tom, my colleague, will talk over me, this and that. So then at least you have some more factual and you can look at it, process it, organize it. And if you have to take it to somebody in your organization, whatever that due process is, you have something that's more organized. You can look at the facts, facts over, facts over emotions, right? Facts over feelings, sorry. And you're able to then articulate and say, the last 3 meetings when we were looking at strategizing, we were supposed to work, I noticed that we're not getting collaborativeness. And here are the behaviors that I have noticed repeatedly by this individual. And I think that is very tactical and something that you could take somewhere.
Yeah. And I think it also gives you a little element of, for me, when I heard that, gives me a little element of being in control of the situation, even though I may not feel in control of the situation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, it totally is. Because when somebody does something, dismisses us, undermines us, takes our thoughts and runs with it or presents it, you have an emotional reaction. It's like, like anger and distrust and then frustration and just a whole ball of emotions instantly. And then remember, you're on to the next meeting or the next project. And so being able to stop and capture it removes it from inside of you. And at least it places out there. And now you can do something about it.
Fantastic. Let me just take another question. It's a great question here, actually. How do we as professional women build a community to continue to tackle the issues or even celebrate our achievements?
Thank you, pandemic, for the virtual world, right? Look where you are, look where I am, look where each one of us is. We have been siloed by society. So depending on where you live, you might look around and go, there's not enough professionals. There are platforms, there are areas there, reach out to individuals. They don't even have to be of your same profession, right? And start to create that psychological safe place where you can meet up virtually and say, you know, I really struggled. This was really hard. I tried to pitch something and this is what happened. So if you don't already have one, don't be bound by geographics.
Yes.
And I think this is beautiful. Again, this is why I adore your platform, because you create an accessible space. So reach out to other like-minded individuals. Say, hey, can we get together? It doesn't have to be big. It needs to be psychologically safe and supportive.
Yeah, and you just hear you say that, because one of the things I do at the moment, and it was a kind of it started as a networking thing, but I'm actually seeing the power in it. Is I do roundtables. I call women of color in leadership roundtables, and I reach out to women in my network just to, I think there's, I don't want to say safety in numbers, but with the virtual, like this virtual platform, the power, it's only as powerful as the effort you put into it. So I've started meeting with these women that I've connected with just to understand more about the challenges they face, to understand more how we can support each other, even though we're across oceans. And what I found is that there's couple of things I found is that, one, sometimes there could be, there could be a couple of generations between. There's 20 years, because, I'm not indiscriminate about who I'm picking. But the experiences they're having now were experiences I was having in my own career 20 years ago. One, it's astounding that we haven't gone any further sometimes with this. But secondly, I can actually share my experience. Maybe share some of the tactics I used. And it also, what I've heard is that women have said to me, you understand, you get it.
Listen, sorry to interrupt you. The you get it is one of the most important things. When I do counseling, when I did counseling at the university, they would book the appointments and they'd come on, like, especially during the pandemic, virtually, and you would nod, and they always said, because you get it. So what happens is shorthand for all these cultural things. I don't have to educate you. I don't have to teach you about certain things. We just do the nod and we get it. That shorthand is so bonding. It's so community. There's certain things I don't have to explain to you. And it's like, oh, that just feels so nourishing. And so I'm so relaxed in this space. So there's that shortcut of you get it. That does not mean you know everything. You do not know everything about me and my experience, but there are some shared experiences. And that's what we're looking for, is shared experiences.
I mean, it's almost like the minimization, because I know I've spoken to maybe a Caucasian colleague about how I've experienced, and they will do the thing where it's, well, we went through this, and but your experience, you're not listening. It can never be the same. I'm not saying for you to, it's not, I'm not trying to have a pity party with you. I'm just trying to explain to you how I experienced this. And it's something it's maybe a nuance you didn't realize existed, because it's not your lived experience. There's such a difference. There's such a difference.
And I think in the past, I could be challenged on this, is we would go and explain it. Well, I'll explain to you what has happened to you, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm just tired. I'm right where you're just tired. Like, I'm going to explain it. Sorry. It's okay.
Yeah,
there's fatigue, right? And I think that is also new, because I don't think we would have admitted a fatigue. I think we would have definitely done a lot of educating. And that's also too, because there's a lot of books. There's been so much movement around educating, and if people choose to be allies, and it's also how other people who are not of color try and make sense of something that they themselves have not experienced. So it's complicated, and it has all these elements in it. But getting back to it's so, community is so important. I think community is also just part of our cultural backbone, and we've been siloed.
And just to add to that, to the comment that was about creating a community, if you want to visit my website, it's a shameless plug here, janicesutherland.com. I have a weekly newsletter that's specifically for mid-career Black women, where I talk about the challenges, the issues and stuff like that. And I'll be building a community. So get on that newsletter, subscribe to that newsletter, and I can keep you informed of when we're going to have these more, I suppose, virtually open events where we can talk some of these issues out. So thank you for that. Now I've got someone's I'm not sure what the question is here, but the question that was given was said was, how can someone believe in something they had no idea it existed at all? I'm not quite sure that's referencing to. And then he goes on to say, children are not taught about, well, that was the mental health reference. Children who are raised on farms with parents who are avid practitioners of healthy living. I'm not quite sure, Harold John, where you're going with that question. It wasn't quite clear. So if you want to maybe reference it a little bit more, maybe it's part of the conversation, we missed it in the flow of the conversation, please let me know. But we are getting some comments about, we usually hold things as women, since there's such a stigma of us being emotional.
Oh, thank you for that. Could you being emotional is part of who we are. I mean, people talk to me, look, my hands are going, my facial expression, this is who I am. Have I toned it down? Yes, I toned it down in the past in order to sort of fit this. But then the feedback I got is like, no, you need to keep doing this. So how could you imagine what we leave on the table if we're like, we don't bring our emotion? Now, of course, there's something called emotional regulation, which is we want to make sure our emotions are appropriate for the setting. But I believe all of us are professionals and mature enough. So again, that comment speaks to, oh, I got to leave this behind. I can't bring this to work. I can't bring this to my career or my profession because it has not been accepted and it has been labeled. And I think that needs to shift. Bring all of you to the table.
Yeah, the irony is of that, when you just said that, is that we are told to be, from a leadership perspective, I'm going to say that being authentic or authenticity is what can help you make you be a better leader. So it's that irony. The emotion is part of you, but maybe don't show it. But yes, you need to show it because you need to be authentic.
Well, there's a trap with authenticity, right? We want you to be authentic as long as you do this, 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 and this. That's not authentic. You're still meeting criterias, right? Authenticity means I'm bringing all of me, including my broken pieces, including my flaws, but I'm wrapping them up in this professional package. It's like saying, I want you to be authentic, but can you sort of change how you do this? And so I think a lot of these comments are addressing the myths and the narratives that we have been told by society. It's just that we now have the courage to go, hang on, can you just wait a second? What do you mean I can't do this? Why am I now an emotional or the angry Black woman? And I think that's really what these comments are talking about. They're pointing to, I'm going to put my hand up and start asking and debunking some of these things that were said about me.
Yeah, fabulous. We've just got some clarity for that question we were talking about earlier. It was said that Gillian had said that people say that they do not believe in mental health.
Yeah.
So that goes to the question, how do they believe in something they didn't know existed?
Oh, okay. So I love that. Belief in existed. It really is, they felt it, they knew it, they didn't have a name for it. There wasn't a conceptualization. So if somebody is sad, and they're like, I don't believe in mental health, but you do agree that you're sad and you're struggling to get out of bed and you're struggling with motivation and some other symptoms and things like that. And then what you find is that there's a name for it and that there's symptoms for it and there's potential treatment for it. And so it's this convergence on this experience and then the words that go with it, right? And the words that go with it is that, oh, this is mental health. This is mental well-being. I need to talk to someone. This is anxiety. This is what anxiety feels like. This is what a panic attack is. And so this convergence upon this experience with the words, and then it comes together, and all of a sudden you have a better definition or an articulation of what you're experiencing.
Hope that explains it for you, Harold John. Hope that explains it. So let me just nip back. We're going to coming down to the wire with our last few questions.
Sure.
Here.
And you can
so I'm going to tap into your professional capacity. So how does counselling help with supporting a marvelous midlife?
Well, here's the thing with counseling. It's a beautiful way to guide you through. It's objective. It's an objective perspective. I'm not your friend. right? I'm going to help you point out your blind spots, right? It's a safe space to talk. It's the ability to be vulnerable in a psychologically safe space without judgment. Professional expertise and knowledge that is so critically important, as well as validation and support. So many people feel that they are the only one going through XYZ, and to hear like, yeah, I've heard that story before, right? Yeah.
Definitely. No, I call it the me, myself, and I syndrome. That's what I call it, because nobody else has experienced what I've had, or ever understand, and it's amazing. Tap the shoulder, the next person next to you, they've been through something similar.
Exactly.
So let's just start to close off here. What tips and strategies can you share to promote healthy self-care practices, Gillian?
Really quick, I'm gonna say, hey, controversial, let's go for it. I don't believe in hacks when it comes to mental health. So sorry, putting it out there. A hack is a shortcut. Okay, here's the thing with mental health. It's like telling me you're going to make a chicken for me and you pop it in the microwave for 5 minutes. I get a little bit nervous. Okay, I want to know that chicken has hit the oven and it has been roasting. Okay, so we want these one quick hit wonders, and really, this is really about depth. Really taking the time to put the work into digging a little bit deeper. It's not always pretty. It's not always nice. Lots of Kleenex. Keep that hanging around. So there's that. So you need to be prepared for putting in the work for sustained change. If you want the change to stick, also be intentional. Make it a priority. If you're a working person and you have health benefits for prescription, for vision, for braces, dental, you also have it for mental health. You need to tap into that as well too. Keep it as a budget line. I have it, have it as a budget line, the same way you would have a massage or anything else. That way you're paying attention. You don't have to use it every month, but at least you know it's there. Keep looking until you find the right therapist. So many people say, Gillian, I can't find the right therapist. How many times did you try? Once? Seriously? Yeah. Keep looking and have some really good, interview your therapist. They're working for you. Interview your therapist. Goodness of fit. For example, I do 15-minute consults. I'm not for everybody, and I wish people well and I move them on to other people. So there's that as well too. That, and then the journal, what I spoke about before, writing things down externalizes experiences. Really important with the day-to-day microaggressions and racism and things like that we encounter on a regular basis.
Fabulous. So my last question before I close off here today, what's I always like to look at the joy of something, because I actually love being in my 50s. I can't believe I am. That's one thing, but I don't see it as probably the challenge I would have thought of when I was much younger. So what's the joy of practicing good mental health at 50?
I would say it's like yummy and it's delicious. You wouldn't think, what is a therapist? But it is. It's yummy. It's delicious. It's beautiful. It's wonderful and effective. What a great time in your life. Depending on where you are, for the most part, it's such a luxury, right? Because you're at a stage of your life where the kids are likely independent, even if they're coming and go, they're independent. Where you're at the peak of your career, because you hopefully have about 20, 30 years of whatever it is that you do. So you're at the peak, my friend, right? You know things. You have a consolidated time. This is a time to consolidate all your wisdom and your experience. And we've got energy, right? So this is such a wonderful time. So let's just pull in that last piece, which is a mental health piece. Let's start to challenge some of those narratives around, being super women, family dynamics, pain, unresolved issues. Let's start to work on letting some of those go so that we can really, truly feel present and whole at this wonderful time of our lives.
Fantastic. And Gillian, if people want to reach out to you or connect, can they do that what's the best way to do that?
I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, I've got a website. I always say, hunt me down. People are good with technology. Hunt me down. I'm also on Psychology Today. I love to hear from people. I'm thoroughly and utterly passionate about mental health and well-being, especially as it relates to us as Black folks, because we're a little bit late getting into the game, and I want as many of us being just presenting whole.
Yeah. And I think what's great right now, and this is probably me just talking off my head, is that there's so many of us now being open about the fact that we want to work with our people.
Yes.
I mean, I maybe I don't know, maybe I've been under a rock somewhere, but I've not heard it, being so loud and proud about people saying, this is who I work with. This is who I prefer to work with. Yes. This is who I want to work with. And it's good to, as you said, to have they say representation matters, and they're not wrong.
It is so important, especially when it comes to mental health. I want to be able to tell you something about my childhood, how I was raised, but but there's that shortcut again. Is that getting it? I do not know everything that you have lived through. That's your lived experience. But we know that we've shortcutted it. And again, I'm hearing that in so many areas. And I again, go out there, get the assistance that you need, unload, talk. And I think, the mere fact that you've decided to use today to talk about mental health and Black, game changer.
Yeah. And women over 50.
And women over 50.
My power trifecta. So Gillian, thank you so much. Let me just close off my audience. Thank you so much for your insights and your wisdom. It was fabulous. I just love the fact we're on the same hymn sheet. So let me just close off here. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us this month in Black, Female, and 50, the Power Trifecta. If you have any suggestions on topics you'd like me to explore, I'm already lining up the next few months. Let me know. Message me on this platform or email at info@jannysutherland.com. If you'd like to learn more about what I do, how I can help your career, listen to the latest This Woman Can podcast, or to sign up to the weekly newsletter I mentioned earlier, specifically for mid-career Black women, where we cover strategies, stories to inspire, and I'm going to say that out loud, events and programs, and all things to support you, guide you towards work that makes you feel fabulous. Head over to jannysutherland.com. So until next time, as I said, thank you so much for joining me. And it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much, and see you next month.